Assalamu alaikum friends, welcome to SZJ Vibes, the RMS Titanic, a name that echoes through history not just for its majestic design, but for the tragic fate it met. Built in the early 20th century, the Titanic was a symbol of human ambition, luxury, and pride. But on the night of April 14, 1912, that symbol became a grave for over 1,500 souls. This is not just a story about a ship. It's a story of dreams, decisions, mistakes, and the price of believing something was unsinkable. In 1907, two powerful shipping companies, White Star Line and Harland & Wolff, decided to build the most luxurious and largest ship the world had ever seen. Construction began in 1909 in Belfast, Ireland. Length, 882 feet. Weight, 46,000 tons. Decks, 9. Lifeboats, 20, enough for only half the people on board. Nicknamed the unsinkable ship, it wasn't just a ship. It was a floating palace, with grand staircases, first-class dining rooms, Turkish baths, and luxury suites. It was divided into 3 classes: first, second, and third steerage, a reflection of society's class system at the time. On April 10, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, England, on its maiden voyage to New York City. Stops: Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, now Cove, Ireland. Final count: around 2,224 passengers and crew. Among them were millionaires like John Jacob Astor IV, engineers and businessmen, immigrants seeking a new life in America, families, lovers, and children, all with their own dreams. The ship sailed smoothly for days. People dined, danced, and marveled at the beauty of the Atlantic Ocean. But deep in the night, trouble loomed ahead. Titanic had received 6 warnings from other ships about icebergs in the area. But these messages were not taken seriously. Why? Because Titanic was believed to be unsinkable. Captain Edward J. Smith, one of the most experienced captains, continued at full speed. Then came the night of April 14, 1912. At 11:40 p.m., the lookout spotted a massive iceberg directly in front of the ship. The alarm was raised. The ship turned left. The engines reversed. But it was too late. The Titanic struck the iceberg on its starboard, right side. The collision tore open a 300-foot gash in the hull. Water began flooding the compartments. The design of Titanic could survive 4 compartments flooding, but 5 were breached. That sealed its fate. Captain Smith and the engineers quickly realized the Titanic was going to sink, and fast. Distress signals, SOS, were sent. Lifeboats were prepared, but there weren't enough boats for everyone. The rule at the time was women and children first. As a result, first-class passengers were given better access. Third-class passengers struggled to reach the lifeboats. Some boats were launched only half full in the chaos. The band on the Titanic played music to calm passengers. Their final song is believed to be "Nearer, My God, to Thee." As the ship sank deeper, the rear of the Titanic rose high into the air. 2:18 a.m., the ship broke in 2. The front half sank first, followed by the rear. People in the freezing Atlantic screamed for help, but only a few lifeboats turned back. The water temperature was -2 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Hypothermia set in within minutes. Out of more than 2,200 people on board, only 705 survived. Over 1,500 people died, most from cold exposure. At 4:10 a.m., the RMS Carpathia, a nearby ship, arrived to rescue the survivors. Those in lifeboats were pulled aboard. Many were in shock, cold, or grieving loved ones lost in the ocean. News of the disaster shocked the entire world. The Titanic disaster changed maritime laws forever. Ships were now required to have enough lifeboats for everyone. 24/7 radio communication became mandatory. Ice patrol services were introduced to monitor the North Atlantic. Investigations were held in both America and Britain, but ultimately the accident was blamed on human overconfidence, lack of safety equipment, ignoring iceberg warnings. The Titanic became a symbol of human arrogance and the price of ignoring nature. For decades, the Titanic lay lost in the depths of the Atlantic. Then in 1985, ocean explorer Robert Ballard discovered the wreck, nearly 12,500 feet below the surface. The ship was broken in two, covered in rust and home to deep-sea life. Personal items still rested on the ocean floor. Since then, documentaries, museums, and films have kept the story alive. The Titanic is more than a shipwreck. It's a story of dreams and disaster, heroism and tragedy. It reminds us never to underestimate nature, to prepare for the worst even when we feel invincible, that life is fragile, and history must be remembered. From movies like James Cameron's Titanic, 1997, to exhibits around the world, the memory of Titanic lives on. A fictional book predicted Titanic's fate. In 1898, 14 years before Titanic sank, a novel called Futility by Morgan Robertson told the story of a ship named Titan, which hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. The ship was also described as unsinkable. The ship ignored ice warnings. Titanic received 6 iceberg warnings on the day it sank. The last and most urgent one wasn't delivered to the bridge because the radio operator was too busy sending personal messages. A fire may have weakened the hull. A coal fire had been burning in one of Titanic's bunkers for days before departure. Some experts believe it may have weakened the steel in the hull where the iceberg hit. The lookouts had no binoculars. The lookouts in the crow's nest didn't have binoculars. They were locked away, and the key was with an officer who had been replaced last minute and forgot to hand it over. A lifeboat drill was canceled. A scheduled lifeboat drill on April 14, 1912 was mysteriously canceled by Captain Smith, just hours before the ship hit the iceberg. The lifeboats weren't filled. Titanic had 20 lifeboats, only enough for about half the passengers, but many were launched half empty. One boat designed for 65 people left with only 12. A millionaire refused a lifeboat seat. Benjamin Guggenheim, one of the richest men on board, refused a seat in a lifeboat. He dressed in a tuxedo and said, "We are dressed in our best and are prepared to go down like gentlemen." Titanic's band played till the end. The ship's band played music to calm passengers as the ship sank. Their last song was likely "Nearer, My God, to Thee." None of them survived. The Titanic split in two. Survivors reported that the ship broke in half as it sank, but this was not believed until the wreck was found in 1985, confirming the break. The water was below freezing. The ocean water was -2 degrees Celsius, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, below freezing. Most victims died from hypothermia within 15 minutes. Only one lifeboat returned for survivors. Despite hundreds of people freezing in the water, only Lifeboat 14 returned to look for survivors and rescued just 4 people. Captain Smith ignored speed warnings. Even though iceberg warnings were coming in, Titanic was sailing at almost full speed, 22.5 knots. The rich had better chances. First-class passengers had a 63% survival rate, while third-class passengers had only about 24%. Some third-class areas were locked to keep them from reaching the decks. A Japanese survivor was shamed. A Japanese survivor, Masabumi Hosono, returned home and was branded a coward for surviving when so many others died. The Titanic had its own newspaper. The ship printed a daily newspaper, the Atlantic Daily Bulletin, with news, stock prices, horse racing results, and society gossip. There were 8 dogs aboard. Only 3 dogs survived the sinking. One was a Pomeranian wrapped in a blanket by its owner, who claimed it was a baby. There was a famous Egyptian mummy curse rumor. A rumor spread that a cursed mummy from the British Museum was being transported on Titanic and caused the disaster. But it was false. The SOS signal was new. Titanic was one of the first ships to use the new distress signal SOS, but also used the older CQD signal during the sinking. Wreck not found until 1985. Despite its fame, Titanic's wreck was only discovered 73 years later, in 1985 by Dr. Robert Ballard, using secret U.S. Navy equipment. Titanic's interior was inspired by the Ritz Hotel. The first-class dining room was inspired by Ritz Hotel in London, with wooden panels, chandeliers, and luxury that rivaled 5-star hotels. The 4th funnel was fake. Titanic had 4 funnels, smokestacks, but only 3 were functional. The 4th was just for aesthetic balance and ventilation. A baker survived in freezing water. The ship's chief baker, Charles Juffin, survived in the freezing sea for nearly 2 hours, possibly due to alcohol in his system keeping him warm. Over 700 people survived. Out of around 2,224 passengers, only 705 people survived. Most were women and children from first and second class. Many families were completely lost. Some families lost entire households. For example, all 8 members of the Sage family, third class, died. The ship could have been saved. If the iceberg had been spotted 30 seconds earlier, Titanic might have turned in time. A delay of just half a minute led to the disaster. So guys, if you like this video, so please subscribe SZJ Vibes and tell me what is your favorite part of video. So it's time to goodbye, Allah Hafiz.